Hello, my friends. It's William with 1921 Diaries of Grand Duke Dmitri Pavlovich. We are up to, excuse me, the 30th of January, which is in Paris on that day, a Sunday, the 17th of February. And Dmitri gives us his address once again. And let's see, yesterday was eventful. On the 29th, Dmitri's desire to explore the psychology of the Russian people post-revolutionary, and this conversation that he has with a professor from Petrograd University who'd been part of Sovdep and had left Sovdep and left the country in October of 1920, so not very long before this took place, which made his news pretty much up to date. And then the meeting with the Georgian friends, Alek Amelakvari and Nikita Trubetskoy, and then a walk with Coco in the Parc de Saint-Cloud, ending with dinner with Bob Luders, and then bridge at the Vichfelds. Okay, so today is not quite as busy a day for Dmitri, although there's still a lot going on, beginning with a memorial service. So I found this today. I was going through some of my papers. So speaking of memorial service, here's another little icon that I have of the Russian imperial family. And the previous one I showed in one of my Dmitri videos was this one, which is in very poor shape because a puppy got a hold of it and chewed, a Great Dane puppy. So it survived, but just barely. And yeah, it's not very appealing anymore. This one is much nicer, and it was given to me as a gift by a friend in Switzerland. I'm not one of the people who honestly venerates the Nicholas and Alexandra and the children, although I think it's not out of line to designate them as passion bearers, not as saints per se, but as passion bearers. Yeah, you know, I don't know if you could say that they died for their faith, but you know, they died for what they believed in, I guess. So yeah, why not? Alexei looks like he's about 10 there. And I think in iconography, they seem to prefer him as sort of the image of the divine child rather than, you know, he was a teenage boy, I think, 13, maybe almost 14 years old when he died. And he would probably prefer to be depicted that way. But yeah, it is what it is. So let's dive into today's diary entry. I dropped by Maria's, and we went to church together. After liturgy, there was a memorial service for Papa and Bodya and the other members of the family who died with Papa in Petrograd. I think it happened on the 16th, old style, but Mamachka thinks it was the 17th because they were killed on the night of the 16th, 17th at 4 o'clock in the morning. There were lots and lots of people at the church and many French. The memorial service was very well conducted. When it was over, everyone started approaching us and shaking our hands, and it felt to me a little like being in a dream. I went to young Dubiensky's for lunch. He has taken an apartment not far from my own. His wife and father were there. It was rather boring. Afterwards, I did some writing at home, and around 5 o'clock went to Sofka Polovtsov's place for tea. I found Dmitri Sheremetyev, the younger, there. I dined at Linda's. It was just her, Cole, and no one else. Around 10 o'clock, I went to Maria's and went home very early and wrote until around 12:30. Okay, so as I said, not particularly detailed or action-packed. So I guess Dmitri thought that his father was killed on 4 o'clock in the morning on the 16th, and Mamichka is saying no, it was 4 o'clock in the morning on the 17th. But yeah, it's pretty immaterial, and I don't know how they knew it was 4 o'clock in the morning, honestly. So Princess Palais, I believe at the time, was still in Russia. Don't think she left until after her husband's death with her 2 little girls. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, she seems very definite in her knowledge about not only the date, but the time that took place. I assume that this memorial service took place at the Orthodox Church on the Rue Daru. It's still there. It's in central Paris. So if you're in Paris, or if you find yourself in Paris in the future, it's well worth having a look at, both inside and out. It's a beautiful church, and it has a lot of history. It was the main emigre church in France, I believe, certainly in Paris. Well, there were other churches in the south of France that were also important. But this was the place where you went if you were part of the Tsarist Russian set in Paris. And I'm not sure if for most of its existence, it was a Rokor church, so the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, so not under the Patriarch of Moscow, and the Soviets did allow there to be a patriarch. But yeah, I'm not sure. It might be under the Moscow Patriarchate now, but last time I was there, they were really taking a strong pro-Ukrainian stance. So maybe it's not under the Moscow Patriarch. I'm not sure. Okay, so he mentions the other members of the family who died with Papa in Petrograd. So those would have been the two of the Mikhailovich brothers, Nikolai Mikhailovich, and who was the other one? I should know that, of course. Georgy Mikhailovich, whose grandson I knew very well. And 2 of the Mikhailovich brothers survived, Alexander, Sandro, and Mikhail. They both survived, and another one died, Sergei. He died with Aunt Ella, and with Dmitri's younger brother, half-brother. Okay, so naturally, even though Dmitri doesn't go to church very often, he's obviously not going to miss his father's memorial service, and in fact, he goes for the entire liturgy, and it is the custom in Orthodox churches to have memorial services following the Sunday liturgy, and to do them once a year. For loved ones, you'll have a memorial service once a year, sort of in perpetuity. Okay, so let's see. There were lots of people at the church, including many French people, so I think that made Dmitri feel good. And afterwards, they came up and expressed their condolences, and yeah, it was kind of a strange experience. It felt a little bit like he was in a dream. There was a little bit of unreality to it. His father had been killed. It was January 1919, so it had been, a few years back, but not long. Okay. Then after that, he goes to young Dubinsky's for lunch. Young Dubinsky being Dubinsky Jr., not Dubinsky, who was particularly younger than Dmitri. He was only 2 years younger than Dmitri, and he is the 4th member of the Information Bureau, and so, he's someone that is important to Dmitri as a member of his little sort of espionage cell. But his wife is there, his old father is there, and so, it's a social occasion, and it's a little bit on the boring side for poor old Dmitri. And he goes home and he does some writing. He does writing twice that day. It's harder for him now to do writing in the morning, which is what he likes to do. On this occasion because of the church service, and on other occasions because his information bureau members are coming in the morning to report to him. So, but you can see how seriously he takes his writing in his diaries. He's very disciplined about it. So let's see then what else. Then he goes to Sofka Polovtsov's for tea, and he sees less of Sofka than the other Polovtsov wife, Mimi, who was Pete Polovtsov's wife. Sofka is Alexander, Sasha Polovtsov's wife, and if you recall, Sasha had come through with this big loan for Dmitri so that Dmitri could pay his servant Savodnya's back wages going all the way back to 1916. So, yeah, Dmitri always refers to the home or apartment that's shared by a married couple as being the wife's home or apartment. He talks about Maria's apartment, Maria's place. He talks about Sofka Polovtsov's place. He talks about Linda Porter's place, even though in all cases these women are living with, this is a place that they live jointly with their husbands, but that's just, Dmitri's idiosyncrasy. Okay, so he goes to Sofka Polovtsov's, and he runs into Dmitri Sheremetyev there. And again, we have young Dmitri Sheremetyev. So Dmitri Sheremetyev was not young in relation to Dmitri. He was young, but not in relation to Dmitri. Dmitri was coming up on his 30th birthday, and young Dmitri Sheremetyev was 36, so he was a count from another one of these very, very prominent and important Russian aristocratic families, on a par with, the Golitsins and the Trubetskoys. And so young Dmitri Alexandrovich is a count. He's a lieutenant. He was in the Cavalier Guards Regiment. He was in the Civil War. He was evacuated from Constantinople, and he was what you could say, you could call him an occultist, although that makes it sound too negative. But yeah, he was into sort of esoteric religion and into astrology and things like that. Well, Dmitri was too, but Dmitri only mentions running into him there at Sofka Polovtsov's. He doesn't mention, that they sat down and talked about these things. And when I looked Dmitri Sheremetyev up today online, I found that he was a Freemason. And let me tell you, if you have a Cyrillic keyboard on your laptop or on your phone, if you can access one, and you put in the name of any Russian ever, and look at their Wikipedia entry, if they have one, you are always going to find out whether that person was a Freemason or not, because Russians are kind of obsessed with that. I mean, apologies to any Russians who are watching this, but at least the people that put together Wikipedia entries are obsessed with it, and it's always considered, a black mark. to this day. And, at the time of the revolution and thereafter, the idea was that it had been this massive worldwide conspiracy of Jews and Freemasons in league with each other. So, yeah, it's a lot of nonsense, of course, but there is the side of it that the Orthodox Church, like the Roman Catholic Church, if you're Orthodox or I believe Roman Catholic, you're not allowed to become a Freemason because it's viewed, I think, as a kind of, alternate, not as something that could be parallel, but something that's, an alternative faith. It's its own religion, sort of a thing. But, anyway, clearly Dmitri did not hold that against him. I think Dmitri had probably a great many friends that were Freemasons. I've never heard that he was a Freemason himself, but I was told by David Chavchavadze. David himself went to a memorial service for these 4 Grand Dukes who were killed. And, that was... I don't know when that would have been, but it was in Washington, D.C., and he said that they were recognized not as saints, but again as passion bearers, with the exception of his uncle Bimbo. So would have been his great uncle. So Bimbo was the family nickname for Grand Duke Nikolai Mikhailovich. And David always told me that it was Georgian, that it wasn't like, I think there's an Italian form of bimbo that means like little boy. I don't know how it got its current meaning and connotations in American English, but anyway, David said it was a Georgian nickname. And why wasn't Uncle Bimbo included? So not only was he not included as a passion bearer, but the priests at that church wouldn't even pray for him. And David was a little incensed by that, and he asked them why his uncle Nikolai was not included with the other Grand Dukes, and he was told, well, because he was both a socialist and a Freemason. And I'm not sure if he'd only been a socialist, that would perhaps not have disqualified him. But the fact that he was a Freemason, in their eyes, definitely disqualified him. But the strange thing about it is that he was not. He was not a Freemason. And in fact, he spoke very harshly in his own letters to a friend of his in France about the Freemasons. He was opposed to the Freemasons. So poor old Uncle Bimbo, not being prayed for because of something that wasn't true about him. I mean, they should have prayed for him even if he was a Freemason, but it's even more sad that they didn't on the basis of something that wasn't true. Okay, so dinner at... I just wanted to say that Dmitri Sheremetyev the Younger was not the son, not a junior. He was not the son of an elder Dmitri Sheremetyev, but there was another Dmitri Sheremetyev, another member of this large family, and so Dmitri wants to distinguish between the two because Count Dmitri, Sergeyevich Sheremetyev was a man in his 50s, also in the Cavalier Guards, and, an important military figure in Russia, and so big on the emigre scene. And so even though they weren't father and son, they both had the Christian name Dmitri. So our Dmitri wants to distinguish between the two of them. Okay, so dinner at Linda and Cole Porter. I continue to be frustrated with the fact that Dmitri only notes Cole Porter's presence without ever saying 2 words about him. He adored Linda, platonically, of course. She was a friend who had been a great emotional support to him. at various times in his life, including before the revolution. And he just thought she was a wonderful person, and, I take his word for it. But Cole, he just doesn't have anything to say about, either positive or negative. And that surprises me, because Dmitri was so into music. And he'd been wild about ragtime as a young man, and he still liked music of all kinds. But yeah, what the heck, Dmitri? Can't you tell us a little something about Cole, or even if you liked his music or didn't like his music? Yeah, I guess that is no longer a possibility, unfortunately. So, and then he stops by his sister's, because he and his sister are sort of each other's North Star. And they, yeah, as you know, if you've been listening all along, they are especially close at this period of their lives in Paris. All right, so that's it for today. We have one diary entry left before we make the big jump to mid-February, to the very long diary entry written in Copenhagen with 2 weeks worth of observations and feelings and other things. And yeah, one diary entry left to go, and we're going to find out more next time about Sheremetyev and continue on with the Information Bureau. I wonder what's going to happen to the Information Bureau in Dmitri's absence. I guess it will continue on with its work. So definitely come back for that, and I'll see you next time.